I've been digging into something that almost feels unreal in today's housing market. While the rest of America is dealing with sky-high home prices, bidding wars, and mortgage rates that punch you in the face, there's one state that stands out, almost like it's frozen in time: West Virginia. And here's the part that shocked me. It's the only state in the entire country where the average home is projected to still cost under $150,000. By 2030, specifically $128,415, according to a Reno 5 forecast. That's not a typo. That's not 1,990. That's not a distressed market. That's a 2030 projection. Meanwhile, the U.S. median home price is already over $419,200 and forecasted to hit $426,000 by 2026. So the official story is simple. West Virginia is cheap, a budget buyer's paradise, the last affordable frontier. But once I started digging into the state-by-state data, the Zillow records, the home equity reports, the town-level price charts, I realized this cheap state narrative is only half the truth. Something else is happening beneath the surface. Because at the same time everyone is calling West Virginia the cheapest state in America, it's also one of the fastest growing housing markets. Prices are rising faster than the national average. Home equity is exploding. Dozens of small towns are quietly becoming expensive. And new buyers, remote workers, retirees, commuters are moving in. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why West Virginia is cheap, why that's rapidly changing, and what most people completely miss about the trajectory of this state. As of early 2025, the average home price in West Virginia is $146,578, the lowest in the nation. Zillow puts the typical home value slightly higher, $169,372, with steady 1.7% annual growth. Either way, compared to the rest of the country, West Virginia looks unbelievably affordable. For context, Hawaii, $840,256, $784,840. New York, $763,358. All according to national 2025 averages. So why is West Virginia so cheap? The official explanations are familiar. It's rural. 2/3 of residents live in rural areas. Demand is low. The state doesn't experience the population booms other states see. Jobs pay less, and poverty is higher. 11 counties have had poverty over 20% for 30 years straight. Healthcare and services are harder to access. Rural distances create barriers. So at first glance, it all makes sense. Low demand, low wages, rural setting, cheap housing, case closed, right? Except the data doesn't line up with that simple story anymore. Because if West Virginia is low demand, then we need to explain something strange. Why are prices rising faster than in half the country? Why is it one of the 5 fastest growing housing states of 2025? Why is home equity exploding at record-breaking speed? In the July 2025 Home Price Insights report, West Virginia had one of the highest price growth rates in the country, up 5.7% year over year, triple the national rate. Let me repeat that. The cheapest state is also one of the fastest appreciating states. But it gets even more surprising. Between 2020 and 2025, home equity in West Virginia grew by an insane 450%, the biggest surge in the entire United States. That's from $6,529 in 2020 to $35,831 in 2025. That means homeowners who bought just 5 years ago built wealth almost unmatched nationally. This isn't a slow, quiet market at all. This is a market that's been heating up under the radar. So the big question becomes, if West Virginia is so affordable, why are prices rising this quickly? Who's buying all these homes? And why is demand increasing if the narrative says demand is low? When you look behind the surface, housing prices are a product of decades, not months. And West Virginia is shaped by long-term structural forces. 1. The legacy of extraction economy. For decades, West Virginia's economy has been tied to coal, energy extraction, and industries that decline sharply. When industries leave, wages stagnate and population growth slows. This suppresses home values for years, even if demand rises later. 2. Rural geography equals slow price pressure. Land availability keeps prices low. Unlike New York or California, where density drives values, West Virginia has space, and that. 3. Lower property taxes and low entry prices. Lower taxes make homes cheaper upfront and cheaper to own long-term. This attracts retirees and fixed-income buyers, which we'll talk about soon. 4. A reputation that no longer matches reality. West Virginia used to be seen as isolated. But in a world where remote work is normal, isolation doesn't mean what it used to. In fact, isolation is turning into an asset. For people fleeing overpriced cities, rural translates to quiet, land, privacy, space, freedom. So the very factors that kept prices low are now becoming selling points, and that flips the market. This is where things get interesting. Once you stop looking at the statewide average and zoom into the town-level data, the picture changes completely, because the statewide average is hiding a massive divide. In many West Virginia towns, especially along the Eastern Panhandle, home prices have surged 50%, 100%, even 150% in the last decade, all from the Zillow Home Value Index in your 33 towns dataset. Here are some standouts. Plus 153.7% since 2010, plus 100.4% since 2014, Ranson, plus 129.1% since 2010, plus 110.3% since 2010, plus 111.6% since 2010, Summit Point, plus 64.6% just since 2019. Shepherdstown, most expensive town, average home $484,053. In 2025, those are not cheap state numbers. Those are explosive growth numbers. In fact, the top towns in West Virginia are now priced similar to suburbs of Maryland and Virginia. So what's driving this? It's not just one group, it's three. COVID created a once-in-history migration shift. People realized they don't need to live near an office, and suddenly, a $600,000 Maryland house versus a $260,000 West Virginia house with more land, more privacy, and lower taxes became a no-brainer. Remote workers are pushing into Jefferson County, Berkeley County, Hampshire County. These counties now have some of the fastest growing towns in the entire state, according to the Zillow town-by-town data. 2. Retirees looking for low-cost living. Retirement costs are skyrocketing nationwide. But West Virginia remains affordable, peaceful, and geographically beautiful. Reports show 1 in 5 people in several states are already retired, and retirees are hunting cheaper states. West Virginia checks every box. Low taxes, low home prices, scenic mountain towns, lower cost of living. And retirees bring demand, consistent and predictable demand. 3. Commuters escaping high costs, near D.C. This is the most underrated force. Areas like Charlestown, Ranson, Shepherdstown, Martinsburg are becoming commuter hubs for workers who travel into Maryland or Northern Virginia via I-81 or the MARC train. So you get Maryland income plus West Virginia house prices, rapid appreciation, wealth building migration. This is why Eastern Panhandle home prices are exploding. Something else is happening behind the scenes, something timing related that explains why prices are rising faster now than before. 1. National investors are targeting affordable states. Investor activity is now 1/3 of all U.S. home purchases, according to national reports. Affordable markets see the most activity because they offer the highest rent to price ratios. When investors enter, prices rise. In West Virginia especially, towns under $250K becomes an investor magnet too. Los Angeles, D.C., and Florida. Prices dropped in 2025, so investors shift capital to rising markets. The Home Price Insights report shows major metros like Los Angeles, Washington, D.C. saw price drops. But at the same time, states like West Virginia saw strong price growth. Smart money rotates into undervalued markets. West Virginia is undervalued. 3. New construction is limited. West Virginia doesn't build housing anywhere near the rate of high-growth states. Limited supply plus new demand equals price pressure. 4. Mortgage rates are starting to ease. Lower rates increase buying power. Cotality's chief economist even highlighted that lower rates plus lower home prices in affordable states equal a jump in new buyers. This creates demand waves that hit lower-priced markets hardest. Now we get to the prediction part, based not on speculation, but on the data patterns in your files. Here's the contradiction we have to address. On one hand, West Virginia is projected to still have the lowest home prices in 2030, the only state under $150K. On the other hand, it's already one of the top 5 fastest growing states for price appreciation. Town-level prices show massive decade-long increases. Home equity rose 450% in 5 years. Buyers are flooding in from nearby states and remote work markets. Inventory stays low, 5,645 homes for sale statewide. So, what does that mean for the future? It means West Virginia will stay cheap compared to other states, but prices inside West Virginia will continue rising sharply. The statewide average might stay low, but many towns and counties will not. We're already seeing Shepherdstown at $484K, Shenandoah Junction at $446K, Summit Point at $456K, Charlestown at $402K, all as of 2025. These areas are no longer cheap by national standards. They're competitive with Baltimore, suburban Virginia, and Pennsylvania. So when the 2030 projection says West Virginia will still be under $150K, that number hides the truth. It hides the split between high-growth counties and low-growth rural areas that keep the average low. This is why West Virginia appears cheap, even while key markets inside the state boom.